These are the 10 most over-engineered cars ever built. Vehicles so complicated they made engineers lose their minds, and mechanics curse their names forever. We're talking about the most expensive cars to maintain, the most complicated luxury cars, and vehicles where brilliant engineers said, "Simple is boring. Let's use 50 parts when 5 would do." From the BMW Z1 with its disappearing doors, to the Bugatti Veyron that lost $5 million per car sold. These over-engineered masterpieces prove that sometimes the best automotive stories come from the worst financial decisions. Today we're counting down 10 of the most complicated cars in automotive history. Machines that solved problems nobody had, used technology nobody asked for, and cost fortunes that nobody could justify. If you love classic cars and stories about automotive engineering that went way too far, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell. You're watching Retro Road Kings, and we're about to dive into some serious engineering insanity. Drop a comment right now. What's the most overcomplicated car feature you've ever seen? Before we jump into the countdown of the most over-engineered cars ever made, let's talk about what over-engineering actually means. Over-engineering isn't bad engineering. It's what happens when brilliant people decide that the normal way of doing things is for amateurs. It's when engineers look at a simple problem and say, what if we used 17 electric motors and 3 computers instead? Why do car companies over-engineer vehicles? Sometimes it's passion. Sometimes it's pride. Sometimes it's engineers with unlimited budgets and no adult supervision. These most complicated cars represent what happens when engineers are given blank checks. Sometimes they created legends. Sometimes they created financial disasters. Usually both. Let's start our countdown with a car that solved a problem nobody had. Getting into your car. The 1989 BMW Z1 looked at normal car doors and said, "Let's make them drop straight down into the body like a magician's trick." The doors didn't swing open. They dropped vertically into the door sills and completely disappeared. Why did BMW over-engineer the Z1 doors? The mechanism required 13 separate electric motors just for the doors. Most cars use one motor for all 4 windows combined. And here's the best part. You could drive with the doors down, just cruising at 70 miles per hour with wind blasting your ankles. Comment below. Would you daily drive a car with disappearing doors? BMW also made the body from thermoplastic panels you could supposedly swap out in 40 minutes. Nobody ever did this because why would you? How many BMW Z1s were built? Exactly 8,000 between 1989 and 1991. Each cost as much as a well-equipped 5 Series. Today, those dropping doors still work, which is shocking given how unnecessarily complex they were. The Z1 proved that sometimes the coolest cars solve problems nobody actually had. At number 9, we have the Mercedes-Benz W140 S-Class. What happens when German engineers are told budgets don't exist? How much did Mercedes spend developing the W140? $1 billion in 1980s money. They tested prototypes for 10 million miles. The result nearly bankrupted Mercedes. The doors had double-pane glass, soft close mechanisms, and express windows with obstacle detection. In 1991, the W140 had heated washer nozzles, power-adjustable steering with memory, and electrically adjustable rear headrests. The wiring harness weighed over 100 pounds. Some models had 100 electric motors. 100! The seat adjustment used 12 motors per seat, just so you could move your butt around. Hit that like button if you think 12 motors per seat is insane. The optional hydraulic rear suspension worked brilliantly until it failed, which cost $5,000 to repair. This is why the W140 is one of the most expensive cars to maintain from the 1990s. Why was the Mercedes W140 so heavy? The V12 model weighed 5,500 pounds empty, heavier than many modern SUVs. When launched, Mercedes' CEO admitted they'd gone too far. It was peak German over-engineering with unlimited budgets and no adult supervision. Today, O140s are either meticulously maintained or sitting in junkyards because one module failed and cost more than the car's value to replace. At number 8, the Lexus LFA. What happens when Toyota engineers forget that cars are supposed to make money? Development started in 2000. The car didn't go on sale until 2010. Lexus completely restarted the project twice, switching from aluminum to carbon fiber. The result? A $375,000 Lexus that lost money on every single sale. Why did Lexus lose money on the LFA? They over-engineered every component to an absurd degree. The 4.8-liter V10 revved to 9,000 RPM and sounded like Formula One because they worked, with Yamaha's musical instrument division to tune the exhaust. Why does the Lexus LFA have a digital tachometer? Because Lexus claimed the engine revved so quickly that traditional analog gauges couldn't keep up. They built an engine too fast for mechanical instruments. If you could own any over-engineered car on this list, which one? Drop your answer in the comments. How long did it take to build a Lexus LFA? Each took 50 days. A single craftsman assembled each engine by hand. The carbon fiber body was made in aerospace-grade clean rooms. The paint process took 3 weeks. They spent $750 million developing a car they sold 500 times. That's $1.5 million in development costs per car. Sold for half that. The LFA remains one of the most expensive cars to develop in history. At number 7, the Bugatti Veyron, a car with a simple goal: be the fastest production car in the world. Volkswagen Group spent 1.5 billion euros developing a car that lost them 5 million euros on every single unit sold. Why is the Bugatti Veyron so expensive? Achieving 250+ MP isn't simple. Air resistance increases with the cube of speed. Going from 200 to 250 arms requires nearly double the horsepower. Bugatti created a 1,000 horsepower W16 engine with 4 turbochargers, essentially 2 V8s joined together, breathing through 10 radiators. How much fuel does a Bugatti Veyron use at top speed? At maximum velocity, it consumed 1.3 gallons per minute. The $25,000 Michelin tires lasted 15 minutes at top speed. The wheels failed after 3 tire changes due to centrifugal forces. The Veyron had a special top speed mode requiring a special key and a safety checklist like a fighter jet. Everything was excessive. 20 leather hides for interior consistency. Aluminum switches milled from solid blocks. Even the key fob cost more than most watches. How many Bugatti Veyrons were built? Bugatti built 450 and lost approximately 2.25 billion euros total. But they built the most complicated car that could do 250 miles per hour and start in traffic the next morning. At number 6, the McLaren F1. Designer Gordon Murray decided compromise was unacceptable. The result was one of the most over-engineered cars in history, remaining the world's fastest naturally aspirated production car for decades. Why does the McLaren F1 have gold in the engine bay? The engine compartment was lined with real gold foil. Gold is the best heat reflector available. Each F1 had 16 grams of gold foil. The toolkit was titanium. The CD player was specially developed to be 50% lighter. Even air conditioning was optional because it added 30 pounds. Why is the McLaren F1 driver's seat in the center? Murray put the driver in the center with passengers on either side, the optimal driving position. This required a completely custom pedal box, steering, and dashboard. Should modern car companies bring back over-engineered masterpieces? Comment yes or no. The carbon fiber monocoque took 3,000 hours to manufacture. The suspension had no power assistance, pure mechanical feedback. How much did McLaren spend developing the F1? About $70 million. They planned 300 cars at $540,000 each. They built just 106 because even millionaires thought it was too expensive. Each took 3.5 months to build. McLaren lost money on everyone. How fast is the McLaren F1? It hit 240.1 miles per hour in 1998. Today, F1s sell for over $20 million because nothing comes close to that obsessive engineering. At number 5, the Citroën SM, when French engineers decide to reinvent everything about cars. Launched in 1970, the SM was Citroën's grand touring masterpiece. Instead, it became a rolling laboratory of solutions to problems that didn't exist. Citroën bought Maserati to create a V6 with 3 carburetors and timing chains needing adjustment every 3,000 miles. Why was the Citroën SM so complicated? The hydraulic suspension operated at 2,500 psi, higher than most industrial equipment. One tiny leak, and your SM sat on its bump stops. The Diravi steering was fully powered with self-centering that varied by speed. The steering wheel only turned 2 turns lock to lock. At highway speeds, sneezing could put you in the next lane. What advanced features did the Citroën SM have? Rain-sensing wipers in 1970, inner headlights that turned with steering, a pressure-sensitive brake button instead of a pedal. How many Citroën SMs were built? About 13,000 before reality set in. A hydraulic leak could disable steering, suspension, and brakes simultaneously. The SM remains one of the most expensive classic cars to maintain. At number 4, the Volkswagen Phaeton, the most ambitious failure in automotive history. In 2002, Volkswagen decided to compete with Mercedes S-Class and BMW 7 Series. The result? A $100,000 Volkswagen with more technology than a space shuttle. Ferdinand Piëch set insane requirements. Maintain 186 miles per hour all day in 120-degree heat. Interior couldn't exceed 72 degrees in desert sun. So quiet you could converse at 186 miles per hour without raising your voice. Why is the Volkswagen Phaeton so over-engineered? The 4-zone climate control had 18 motors just for air distribution. Double-glazed acoustic glass was so heavy it needed reinforced door hinges. Volkswagen built an entirely new factory just for the Phaeton. A glass palace in Dresden with maple floors. Maple floors in a car factory. Why did the Volkswagen Phaeton fail? Despite being objectively better than rivals, nobody wanted to pay 6 figures for a Volkswagen. They sold fewer than 1,000 per year in the US. The Phaeton proved you can't engineer away badge snobbery. Volkswagen spent billions developing one of the most advanced cars in the world. It just had the wrong badge. At number 3, the Pagani Zonda. What happens when an obsessive Italian engineer gets creative freedom? Horacio Pagani didn't build a supercar. He built automotive art, where every component is over-engineered to absurd degrees. The Zonda used carbon fiber and titanium everywhere. The body panels were works of art. The exhaust system was individually shaped and welded by hand, tuned like a musical instrument. The Mercedes-AMG V12 was heavily modified by Pagani, but the engine was secondary to the engineering around it. The gear shifter was machined from a single aluminum block, taking weeks to create. Mirror stems were milled from solid aluminum. Every detail was obsessive. How much does a Pagani Zonda cost? Base price around $1.5 million, but most spent over $2 million with options. The interior used leather from cows raised without barbed wire fences, so the leather had no imperfections. Aluminum switchgear was milled from solid blocks. The Zonda is what happens when an engineer treats a car like Leonardo da Vinci treated the Mona Lisa. At number 2, the Mercedes-Benz SLS AMG, a modern over-engineered masterpiece with iconic gullwing doors. Why does the Mercedes SLS have gullwing doors? To honor the legendary 300 SL gullwing, but modern safety regulations made this incredibly complicated. The doors needed to work in rollovers and be light enough to open easily. The solution? An aluminum space frame so advanced, the entire body structure weighed just 530 pounds. The hand-built 6.2-liter V8 produced 563 horsepower. Each engine was assembled by a single technician, whose signature appeared on the engine. What makes the Mercedes SLS AMG special? Transaxle layout with transmission in the rear for perfect weight distribution, electronic limited slip differential, adaptive suspension, 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. How much does a Mercedes SLS AMG cost? New, they started at $183,000. Today, they're appreciating classics because Mercedes will never build another naturally aspirated V8 gullwing. And here we are at number 1. The most over-engineered car on our list, the Pagani Huayra. Why is the Pagani Huayra so expensive? Because literally nothing is off the shelf. Everything is custom, exotic, and costs a fortune. The body uses Carbo Titanium HP62 G2, a carbon titanium weave Pagani developed specifically for this car. The active aerodynamics are insane. 4 independently controlled flaps adjust in real time based on speed, steering, and braking. Each flap is machined from solid aluminum with its own electric motor. What engine does the Pagani Huayra have? A twin-turbo 6.0-liter V12 built by Mercedes-AMG, heavily modified by Pagani, 730 horsepower and 738 of torque. The titanium exhaust is hand-welded. The sound is tuned like a musical instrument. The gear shifter is machined from a single aluminum block, taking weeks to create. Even the single windshield wiper cost millions to develop. How much does a Pagani Huayra cost? Base price around $2.6 million, but most spend over $3 million with options. The interior uses leather from cows raised without barbed wire. The aluminum switchgear is milled from solid blocks. The instrument cluster looks like a Swiss watch. How many Pagani Huayras were built? Only 100 coupes were planned. Each takes months to build because everything is handcrafted. The Huayra is the ultimate over-engineered masterpiece, proof that sometimes the journey of perfect engineering matters more than the destination. So there you have it, the 10 most over-engineered cars ever built. From BMW's disappearing doors to Pagani's obsessive perfection, these complicated masterpieces prove that sometimes passion matters more than profit. Here's the big question. Would you rather own a simple, reliable car or an over-engineered masterpiece that breaks constantly but is amazing when it works? Drop your answer in the comments. Before you go, smash that like button, subscribe to Retro Road Kings, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our next deep dive into automotive history. Thanks for riding with us today. Until next time, keep celebrating engineering excess. This is Retro Road Kings signing off.